language to the hearers. In every instance in the Bible when someone spoke in tongues, the people listening, the people that heard it understood what was said.
So it wasn't like a specific language, it was just like...
Well, you want to say Hebrew?
No, I'm not saying Hebrew at all. But what you're saying is, speaking in tongues, was it like a certain type, like a gibberish?
No, it was language.
It was a language. Do you know what language it was?
Yes.
What language was it?
There's several different languages. Well, let's read Acts chapter 2.
I'm already there.
Okay. Yeah, and Greeks and Arabians, and we do hear that, you know, all that. Yeah.
So what language?
It was several different. Whatever there's in it, I don't have it memorized, but they're all in there.
Wasn't it the language according to the lands that they was living in?
That's what the Bible says.
So what languages was it?
You want me to say Hebrew?
No, I'm not. I don't want you to say Hebrew.
They say it was written in the Greek tongue. It was written in the Hebrew tongue.
I know it. Oh, you mean what was the Bible written in? Is that what you're asking me?
No, that's not what I'm asking.
You're asking me when, on the day of Pentecost,
what was the different languages?
Oh, okay, let's read it and find out.
Acts 2, yeah?
Stump the chump here, right?
I got it. If you want me to read it.
Now, when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded because that every man heard them speak in his own language.
In his what?
Own language.
In his own language.
Right? And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, "Behold, are not all these which speak Galileans?"
Right. So if there was a Spanish person out here, a Greek person out here, a Hebrew person out here, it's different languages, right?
That would be different languages.
Okay, so they spoke in their own language.
Finish it. How hear we every man in our own tongue where we were born, Parthians and Medes and Elamites.
Read that again?
In our own tongue where we were born.
Our own tongue where we were born.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
where were they born?
So speaking in tongues is what?
It's a language. A tongue, yeah.
A tongue,
Yeah.
a language. It's not similar.
No, I know that.
Okay, all right.
I know that.
No, okay.
I've been trying to tell
just
you.
making sure you know that.
As a Pentecostal, that's what it was. It was nonsense.
All right.
But in the Bible, it's not nonsense. It was a known language. Every time.
So there was a known language that no one knows today. It was a known. It was a special type of language.
No, Parthians, Medes, Elamites, dwellers of Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, and Asia.
So that's
Phrygia.
That's the unknown.
That's the place. That's the places where these Hebrews. Remember, God scattered the Hebrews. That's where they were born. What language did they learn?
Say it again. Where
God scattered the Hebrews, the nation of Israel.
Not the other nations, but the Hebrews. Good. Okay.
They were scattered. Yeah, they were scattered.
Very good. Very good.
Is the nation of Israel the only Hebrews?
No.
Jesus is
So you understand the contradiction of what you just said? You just if the nation of Israel isn't the
he
only...
got it right.
What he said? No, but he said that the God scattered the Hebrews.
That's a special language.
Okay, the nation of Israel. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I see what I
yeah. You got it. You got it. You're right.
He got it right.
You got it right. I stand corrected. The nation of Israel.
Okay.
Is these tongues a special language, or did that mean like it's a language?
They were known languages, whatever the people that had to hear. Look, for instance, when Peter went to the centurion's house, what were they? What kind of people were those people?
Are you talking about Cornelius?
Yeah. What kind of people were they? Do you think? Maybe it doesn't say, but he was Italian, we believe, right? He was a centurion. So,
are you Italian?
No.
Were you in the U.S. military?
Yeah.
So you can't just assume that Cornelius was Italian because he was in the Italian military.
We just assume.
That's what Cornelius?
Yeah.
Was Italian?
He may have been. I don't know.
There's no way he could have been an Israelite.
He could have been. But here's the thing: when you read the context, you know he wasn't an Israelite.
Oh, no, that's not true.
Yeah, it is true when you read the
You ever
context.
heard of in the New Testament when you say you bring somebody before the congregation, if they don't listen to you, kick them out as a heathen?
No, that's true. But you know what? That's what happened.
That's what happened.
There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian band. That doesn't make him Italian, right? A devout man and one that feared God with all his house, which gave much alms to the people and prayed to God always.
He was a devout man?
So on and so forth. Let's see here. Thy prayers I also come before God. Now send men to Joppa to call for one Simon, whose surname is Peter. He lodgeth with Simon a tanner, whose house is by the sea, so on and so forth. But when you get back down here near the end, when Peter begins to rehearse it, what do we find?
Yeah, they say we're not supposed to go on the heathen as man.
We're not supposed to keep company with a man that's not a Jew.
And they said Cornelius, centurion, just man, one that feareth God, and of a good report among all the nation of the Jews. That's excluded.
You know, they called Cornelius a devout man, right?
That's true.
Do you know that when you go to Acts chapter 2 now, when the Jews came to assemble for the day of Pentecost, because they were following a law in Deuteronomy 16 and 16, where it says that Israelites that were born outside of Jerusalem, they had to go back to Jerusalem 3 times out of the year. Now, the scriptures called them devout men too, Jews out of every nation under the heaven. So that's one of the clues showing that Cornelius was an Israelite.
Well, I hear what you're saying.
Cornelius was the beginning. I'm just going to give Cornelius was the beginning of the adoption of the Israelite foreigners coming back in. That's why when you read Romans 9, Paul says that the adoption pertaineth to Israelites. Why? Because you said it earlier, Israel was what? They were scattered. Not only were the 10 tribes over here in this land, you had scattered Jews even in that, all throughout Asia Minor, Greece, that whole area.
So if you're a Jew and you've been scattered, are you no longer of that nation?
No. But that's the mix-up that was going on. That's why it says that they were being called uncircumcised by that of the circumcision, because you had the Jews that were born in the customs, knowing their nationality, talking shit about the Jews, that you had some that knew they were Jews and chose not to follow the customs, but then you had some that were just completely ignorant to the fact of them being Jews. So you had the Jews, right. So Peter what? Peter grew up knowing that he was a Jew, right? Would you say Cornelius grew up, or I wouldn't use Cornelius because you can't really use that. But
he was saying he was one of another nation, but you're saying he was a Jew even though he was of another nation?
But because they were calling them heathens, like he said in Matthew 18 and 17. If he neglects to hear the church, count him as a publican and as a heathen. So of the Jews that were uncircumcised, some of them were physically uncircumcised, but this uncircumcision was really talking about an uncircumcision of the heart.
Okay.
The Jews that were uncircumcised in the heart, because they didn't know they were a part of the circumcision, but you had some that knew they were a part of it but chose not to. Right. The Jews that were in Jerusalem at that time that knew who they were the ones rejecting them and calling them heathen and calling them Gentiles.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you because in 11:18, so when they heard these
Cornelius
things,
would have been considered a Gentile to the Israelites. Not just Cornelius. You think Cornelius was the only Israelite in the Roman Italian band? Exactly. I mean, like I said, me and this brother here, our family come from the Caribbean. We still do that to this day. Yeah, my family's Jamaican, but when I go back home to Jamaica, they call me a Yankee because I wasn't born in Jamaica. So we still do the same thing to this day. And where does the term Yankee come from? The Revolutionary War, when the British fought against, we called them America called them redcoats or lobsters or whatever, and then they called here Yankees. Who owned Jamaica at the time? Great Britain. So a lot of that terminology came down to.
So if you read 500 years from now about us and they called us Yankees, you would have thought we wasn't Jamaican.
Yeah, you would have been like, oh, those are U.S. Those are Americans. Those are white.
Hey, our guys
that's the thing,
our
man.
Guys are heading off, leaving us. We got to.
But go read the whole chapter of Ezekiel 36. Like that chapter breaks it down. Where the Lord said, I'm gonna scatter you and I'm gonna bring you out.
Right.
That's what Paul was doing. He was gathering the Israelite foreigners back. They were being called Gentiles and Greeks.
Okay. All right, man.
It's all right.
Yeah.
That's a good point though. Like if we go, y'all do that right? They do that over there too.
Yeah, Benjamin, man.
Even in Puerto Rico, they do
they do the same shit in New York City. My rib, I get on her all the time. Like, you from Connecticut? You was born. It's a Jake thing, man. It's just a territorial thing when it comes to Jake, man.
Like when I went down to Jamaica, my dad was talking about how they come over here to get women and shit like that, and how we rough on the women, we don't get them nothing, and they get them money. I'm like, you know, that's hey, man. But when he was talking to me and talking to his friends about me, he called me a fucking Yankee. They was calling me Yankee. This is my dad, you know what I mean? I'm Jamaican too. I wasn't born there. I was born in America, in Miami. So because I was born here, they called me a Yankee. Now, if we went 500 years down the line, people that read our stories would think that we were white. That we weren't, like me and my father weren't of the same people because they were calling me a Yankee, or they were calling this brother a Yankee. But that's why you gotta understand. Really, that's why we're going back to what we were talking about earlier. That's why you gotta go into the Hebrew and the Greek. That's why you gotta understand the context of the times, man. And understand the Old Testament. If you just started the New Testament and start reading, you're not gonna get what was happening. And why certain people are called uncircumcised, circumcised, why certain people were called Gentiles and heathens and shit like that. And then when we come out here and tell you, well look, the Israelites, you know, Jesus came to save the Israelites. And you don't understand why, because you don't understand the context of the scripture. Go ahead.
I love to bring out this point right here, Deuteronomy 30, because we know that the first 5 books, without a fact, a Christian, an Israelite, you could come to an understanding that the first 5 books was written to who? The nation of Israel. Right? Deuteronomy, if I'm not mistaken, it means 5th book of the law, right?
I don't know.
Well, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30, I'm going to start at verse 1. And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessings and the curses, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord Yahawah hath driven thee, and shalt return unto the Lord thy power, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children will, with all thine heart and with all thy soul. Verse 3, that then the Lord thy power will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy power hath scattered thee. Verse 4, if any of thine be driven out unto the outermost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord Yahawah gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. Verse 5, and the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord thy power will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thy seed to love the Lord thy power with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And I love bringing out that scripture because that's the new covenant written in Deuteronomy. Moses prophesied the second covenant. Who was the first 5 books written to, man? That's only talking about the nation of YAHAWAH.
Somebody you get your cell phone and get on Genesis 35 and 9. I'm sorry, 35 and 10. No, 35 and 11. Yeah, go behind the word nation. Go ahead, bro.
This is Genesis chapter 35.
That one.
Got it? Yeah, I got it.
Genesis chapter 35, verse 9. And the Most High appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Padanaram and blessed him. And the Most High said unto him, thy name is Jacob, thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but YAHAWAH shall be thy name. And he called his name YAHAWAH. And the Most High said unto him, I am the Most High Almighty, be fruitful and multiply, a nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins, and the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed after thee will I give the land.
Get that part about the nation again.
Genesis 35 and 11, and the Most High said unto him, I am the power almighty, be fruitful and multiply, a nation and a company of nations shall be of thee.
Stop. What nations mean right there?
The word
What's
nations in the Hebrew is Gawai.
Gawayam.
Gawayam. Hold on, let me just get it back.
Or as they say, Goyim.
Goyim, right.
Or as they would say, Gentiles. That's where the English translation, Gentiles.
The way they have it here, yeah. You want the definition? It says masculine noun, proper.
All of it.
Slakia, masculine noun, root apparently from the same root as H1465. The biblical usage is nation, people, usually of non-Hebrew people, of descendants of Abraham, of Israel, of swarm of locusts of the animal. Goyim, nations.
It said of Israel, right?
It said that's one of the biblical usages of the word.
That shows you. This is why it's important to go into the Hebrew. Like we was telling them, you gotta go into the Hebrew and English. I'm not gonna put all my trust on no fucking men that translated these scriptures. Most High raised us up as a nation. And a part of our job as this nation is to scour through these scriptures and make sure that we teach them the correct way. I'm not going to say this Bible, the translation itself is infallible. There are places in the scriptures where the translation is fucked up. I'll just be honest. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. The people that wrote it, they fucked over the translation.
Can I get a bone piece of it?
Like the one, like the one I brought out in Exodus 22 and 28. We know damn well we're not supposed to be worshiping no other God, which worship means a reverence. The Most High says not to revile the gods. Then he says to, what the second part says, not to revile the gods. And
or any of the rulers.
Or the rulers of your people.
Right.
So we already know right there, God is Elohim in the Hebrew, which means judges. This is why you see the problem with them is that they trust the English too fucking much. To the point that they're missing things such as the virgin birth, such as what's some of the other stuff that they miss off of the translation? What a virgin birth. The names. They get fucked up over the names. It's just shit like that. They get fucked up over that shit and they got these new doctrines because they're relying solely on the English without going into the original tongue.
Where do you go after you die? Heaven,
oh yeah, hell. Oh, that's a big one.
That's a big one.
That's a big one that they, even though the scriptures in English clearly tells you that there's a place where everybody goes when they die.
Yeah, say it though.
It's the same place that tells you that in Job.
Yeah.
Even though it says that, they still fuck up on the heaven and hell. It's because they rely heavily on the English, and the man told you, I don't know if it was on camera, it probably wasn't picking it up. The man told you that he goes off of faith that the people that translated this, translated it perfectly and correctly. And we showed the man 2 examples, and the man still was on that shit. Go ahead, bro.
Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding.
Okay, you still got that one I asked for trust no man? Trust no brother?
In Jeremiah, right?
Yeah.
This is 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Study to show thyself approved unto the Most High, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.
That's, as your part as an Israelite, or even just a person that picks up the scriptures,
Right.
your part is to study it and rightly divide it. And the only way you rightly divide it is you gotta meticulously go through it and go through the translations. Go through the Greek and the Hebrew. Brothers gotta get more into the Hebrew and the Greek. I would say you gotta get more into the Hebrew. How you gonna be an Israelite and you don't know Hebrew? Alright? You gotta get into the Hebrew to understand what the Old Testament is talking about. Otherwise you end up like them Christians, man.
This is Jeremiah chapter 9 verse 4. Take ye heed every one of his neighbor and trust ye not in any brother. For every brother will utterly supplant, and every neighbor will walk with slander.
And that's how we living today. Especially when I don't know if the camera was on, when it first came up, this guy led one Israelite brother that was an Israelite by blood but not by faith. Right. He led one Israelite brother astray. Do they want to listen? But he let him, he supplanted him, man. And that's how it is now. You can't trust the fucking translators of the King James Bible and just go with that shit. You gotta trust in your unction from the Most High that He gave us knowledge of all things, that we could go ahead and go do the research and figure out what these scriptures are saying. Right.
This is Jeremiah chapter 23 and verse 1. Woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, saith the Lord. Therefore, there saith the Lord, power of Asher Allah, against the pastors that feed my people. Ye have scattered my flock and driven them away, and have not visited them. Behold, I will visit upon you the evil of your doings, thus saith the Lord, Yahawah Hashem Yahawashai.
Exactly, and that's what this nation now, so-called white man, fuck all the nations, that's what they choose to do. They want us to lead us away from the scriptures. But even when they was translating this, you gotta understand that those men that were translating it had their motives. Certain things in the scriptures, or when you go to Lamentations, and it talks about how the Israelites were white and ruddy in color. And King David, why would they put that shit? Why would it look like the Israelites was white? I mean, you gotta think, like in those days, they had their agendas. Even when you had, we talk about Pentecostal and the fucking Roman Catholics, they were all fighting those different religions. The Roman Catholic Church was trying to reign supreme back then. So some of that stuff would end up in the scriptures, either by purpose or even not unintentionally. So on your part as an Israelite, or as a person that picks up the scriptures, you gotta go in there, you gotta read, and you gotta find out, you gotta look through the whole thing. There's nothing wrong with asking questions, man. And seeking them questions out.
What's Doug doing now?
Nah, man, but go ahead. You got a precept?
Yeah. This is Ezekiel chapter 13, verse 2. Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel that prophesy, and say thou unto them that prophesy out of their own hearts, hear ye the word of the Lord, thus saith the Lord power, woe unto the foolish prophets that follow their own spirit and have seen nothing.
Right. Oh, my bad, one more thing. Where I was just speaking about Lamentations and King David being ruddy. Going into the, what you? Oh, fuck that. Yeah, when you go into King David being ruddy, what I was telling this man about the language changing, really the word ruddy means like a brown, like a reddish, brownish color. Like a brown with a tint of red in it, but it's brown. But when you come to today, they changed that shit to mean red. Going back to show you that they have different intentions. That's why you gotta go look this stuff up. You gotta go into the etymology, you gotta go into the Hebrew, you gotta go into the Greek, because they change this stuff so that you won't be able to get into the scriptures. And then they tell you shit like, yeah, that the translation is invaluable, man. And we gotta trust the translation. And we don't need to say Yahawah or Yahawah or whatever name y'all talking about. We can just say Christ. And Christ, the Bible interprets Christ as Messiah. So you don't understand the whole culture behind those words. And going into the Hebrew and the Greek, man. Oh man, but y'all got
that's what I was saying, about Easter, man.
Oh yeah.
That was a good one. It's obvious if you go into it, they were keeping Easter, but it wasn't Easter, it was the Pesach, which is the Passover. But if you don't go into that word, you won't understand that word is all around, you know, the New Testament. Yahawashi was saying, quote unquote, Easter, if you're going by that English interpretation that was just stuck in there.
You know, another thing too, like when they like to bring up Cornelius, You know, once they see that it says he was of the Italian band, automatically, you know, he was Italian. You know, it's all off, because when you go into Matthews and it talks about the woman that cried after YAHAWASHI, it said that she was a Canaanite woman. But when you go into Mark, the 7th chapter, it tells you, matter of fact, I got it right here. This is Mark, chapter 7, verse 26. It says the woman was a Greek, a Syro-Phoenician by nation, which means by birth. You know? So that's another thing that they go off about, like, because automatically, oh, you was born in America, that makes you an American.
And that's why they stopped using that's why they don't want to touch the Apocrypha, man. The Apocrypha cuts all of that. The book of Maccabees alone it destroys that whole doctrine. They don't want to get into it for that reason. They don't want to understand the secular history. They don't want to learn about John Hyrcanus the First, John Hyrcanus the Second. What was going on during the time of the Maccabees? The Hellenization of the Jews. You know, Antiochus. The Most High set up Antiochus to do that, man. That's an important part of history, man. When you talking about over 400 years, there was nothing being recorded. Come on, man, that don't even make sense, man.
The earth stopped.
When you go into see, it's good you mentioned that, because when you go into the Apocrypha, and Israel, the Greeks had came in, and Israel they built the gem. They started to go after the Greek customs. There was Israelites that wanted to call themselves Antiochians. And if I can find it real quick, and if any of y'all know what
say something real quick too. It's funny that you say that, because our people still do that same shit today. Like, if any of you brothers out there in YouTube land, or any brothers here go to or know anybody in college or been to college, you see Jake doing what? They still joining fraternities to this day. Now, how do you know if somebody joined a fraternity? What they say? Oh, I went Greek, right? So that same spirit of trying to be a Greek is on us, our people today, especially these in our colleges, man. I know so many people. You ask them, they be like, "Yeah, I went Greek. I joined a fraternity." And that's when they do that whole Alpha, Beta, Kappa, and all that bullshit. But that's Jake. Those are the same Jakes back then who sold out to Antiochus and became Greeks, are the same Jake doing that same shit today. It's the same spirits coming back, man.
First Maccabees, right?
First Maccabees.
First and second Maccabees.
Maccabees 1 and 1. You can start at the 10th verse, or you can start at verse 41.
Nah, the one I was saying, I got the one where they called themselves Antiochus. You got something that say that? Yeah, this is the second Maccabees chapter 4, verse 7. But after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus called Epiphanes took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored under the hand to be high priest, promising unto the king by the intercession 360 talents of silver, and of another revenue 80 talents. Besides this, he promised to assign 150 more if he might have license, showing you license,
Permission.
From licentia, Greek word meaning permission, that he might have license or permission to set him up a place of exercise, and for the training up of the youth in the fashions of the heathen, which is why Cornelius and other Israelites in the New Testament are called heathen. They were doing these type of things.
You know what's beautiful about that too, is that Hellenization, because the apostles break this down all the time. You had Hellenists and you had the Hellenized. You had the Hellenists were the ones that knew they were Jake and they chose to go Greek. But then you have the Hellenized were the offspring, you know, the ones that were born into it and didn't know any better. You know, and that's beautiful. I bring that up because it really only took a few generations to completely wipe out, you know, that history or that culture of being a Jake. What, 2, 3, 4 generations? That's all it took, really.
It says, and for the training up of the youth and the fashions of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem. It's off, it's on?
No, you good.
And to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians. So he wanted to call the people in Jerusalem Antiochians, which when the king had granted and he had gotten into his hand the rule, he forthright brought his own nation to the Greekish fashion, and the royal privileges granted of special favor to the Jews by the means of John, the father of Ephemius, who went ambassador to Rome. It goes on and on. But you see what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Jake do that today though, huh?
Yeah.
It's funny because they said they wanted to be called Antiochians, right? After Antiochus, right? Yep. But today, don't Jake call themselves African Americans? Jamaica. Nah, but Jamaica means land of bread and water. African, it comes from Leo Scipios Africanos, and America is Amerigo Vespucci. So they didn't call them, they wanted to call themselves Antiochians back then, but then they basically calling themselves Antiochians now, just Africanos and Amerigo Vespucci. So it still came to pass. You know what I'm saying? It's the same spirits, man. That's why reincarnation is a very, you have to understand in reincarnation to really get into these scriptures, man. And you realize history repeats itself, man, because it's the same spirits coming back, doing the same things in that lot, man. That's why the scriptures say the spirit of the prophet is subjected onto the prophet, man. So that's heavy, man. What is that? What is that? You need $2?
I don't want no big man.
Cool.
Not bad.
That's cool. Yeah. You can listen to this word though, man.
What word?
It's truth for the Heavenly Father. Truth
Hey,
for the
I'm always down to learn more about life. So you got some word. I'm always willing
cool,
to
man.
listen.
I mean, that's a beautiful thing, man. Lord willing.
Hey, I'm always willing to learn something. Hey,
We're not just trying to use this for $2, man. Let me stop that.
$2?
Who was just bringing something out?
Right now.
I was, but I think the pastor.
You got something out?
I'll give $2 to learn.
I was just saying,
learn about a little knowledge.
No, I just want to keep it going.
I was just saying, man, but that shows you that it shows you the context of the scriptures going back into being called Gentiles and other nations. Like it told you in Genesis 35 that out of Jacob's loins become nations, which is Goyim in the Hebrew. But it goes to show you that. Oh, matter of fact,
Wait, what?
give me Romans chapter 7. You gotta just listen. Romans chapter 7.
Romans 7.
Can I bring out a precept?
Go ahead.
This is Isaiah chapter 28 and verse 9. Whom shall he teach knowledge? Whom shall he make understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk, and drawn from the breasts. Verse 10. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line upon line, here a little and there a little. For with stammering lips and another tongue will we speak to his people. Will he speak to his people? So
Can I get your Snapchat on that line?
I don't.
Spread the word out even more.
We have a YouTube channel. You can subscribe to it.
Because you know what, I see you guys are about knowledge. And you know what? Knowledge is priceless.
Romans 9.
Knowledge is the best thing you can have.
You know what? You're right.
24. 24.
It'll be your
talking about what
YouTube
David
and
said?
subscribe to it.
What are you talking about? David was talking about?
We said,
Yeah, just subscribe to your YouTube. Look it up and look up your YouTube, subscribe to it. Knowledge is the most powerful thing you can have on this earth. It's priceless. There is no price you can put on knowledge. No price.
Yes, bring it
Romans chapter 9, verse 24. Even us, whom he have called, not of the Jews only, but also of the Gentiles.
Oh, my bad, read it one more time, sorry.
This is Romans chapter 9, verse 24.
You subscribe to
Even
it?
us, whom he have called, not of the Jews only, but also of the Gentiles.
Right, so that's it, like we were saying. If you go just based off of the English language alone, you would say, well, especially English language and the way that it's used today.
You guys got a location?
Nah, we don't got a location. And you would just think, well, yo, look.
Do you guys need?
I mean, they was Gentiles, man.
Do you guys need a location?
Nah, we good, bro.
We good, bro.
We good.
Sure?
Yeah, we good.
Cause I know this goes far.
Are we good?
It's non-profitable, but it goes far because knowledge is key. To give to everybody. That's the best.
This is Romans chapter 9, verse 24.
The best charity you can give is
Even
knowledge.
us, whom he have called, not of the Jews only, but also of the Gentiles.
Well, like we said, you just think about that in the turn and how they speak today in English, and you would just take that as meaning he's talking about the real Gentiles, like the Greeks, or this from the book of Romans. So he's talking about the actual blood Romans that was in Rome, white people and stuff that ride on horses and shit. But when you really go into the scripture, you really, you interrupting. Yeah, you interrupting, man.
I'm very glad I got this on subscription. I like what you guys doing.
Word, appreciate it, man. But when you go into the scripture, you understand that this is not talking about no other nations. It's talking about Israel, especially when you read down some more. Go to read down some more.
Verse 25. And he said also, O see, I will call them my people, which were not my people, and her beloved, which was not beloved. Verse 26. And it shall come to pass that in that place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there shall they be called the children of the living God. Isaiah also cried concerning Israel.
That's it. So we know it said, oh, he said OC, but we know it's talking about Hosea.
Right.
It said, I will call, read that last part again. I will call them my people.
And it shall come to pass that in that place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there shall they be called the children of the living God.
So he's talking to the Gentiles right there, right? That's what it said, right? Okay, go.
Hosea chapter 1, verse 9. Then said the Most High, call his name Lo Ami, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your power. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God.
So when you read this scripture, the them that he's talking about is Israel. So we know in the New Testament, because we went into the Old Testament, because we understand what the word Gentile means. We know in the Old Testament it speaks about Gentiles in reference to Israel. We know that these Gentiles that they're talking about is Israelites, or Israel.
This is Ephesians chapter 2, verse 11. Wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands.
That's good. It said you were Gentiles. You have more on that?
Yeah. Verse 12. That at the time ye were without YAHAWASHI, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without the Most High in the world.
Exactly. Because they look, that's good you read that. That goes with this. Give me Romans chapter 5, verse 10. You start at verse 8, read to 10.
This is Romans.
It said that they were aliens from the Commonwealth of Israel, being without the Most High in the world, and that they were Gentiles, led away by silly idols, or dumb idols, something to that nature. Dumb idols, I think it was.
So 5 and 10?
Yeah.
This is Romans.
8 to 10. 5 and 8 to 10. Are you in the right? Okay.
This is Romans chapter 5, verse 8. But the Most High commandeth his love toward us, and that while we were yet sinners, Yahawashi died for us.
Now this is Paul talking to the Romans, right? The Gentiles, right?
Much more then, being now justified by his blood, we shall be saved from the wrath through him.
Right.
Verse 10. For if we, when we were enemies, we were reconciled to the Most High by the death of his Son, much more, being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life.
Now, stop. Who is there? Christ died for us. So let's start with that one. Somebody going to get Romans chapter 9.
It said reconcile?
It said reconcile. We're going to get into that. It said Christ died for us. We're going to get Romans chapter 9, where it says he came as concerning the flesh, came for Israel.
I'm not paying attention.
Romans.
Huh?
You got it?
It's Romans.
You got it?
Yeah, this is Romans chapter 9. Chapter 9, verse 2. That I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart, for I could wish that myself were accursed from Yahawashi, for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the services of the Most High and the promises, whose are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, Yahawashi came, who is over all, God bless forever. Amen.
So we know that who you call Christ